States or in other countries, but actually they happen on our doorstep in Europe itself. And as well said, this is actually coming from our money because we are all members of the European Union. We pay our taxes, which taxes within every member state goes to fund these actions. And this has been a groundbreaking documentary in which we have managed, the producer here, the director here, thank you for being with us, Paolo.
Hi there, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
I think we all have here the opportunity actually to ask questions to Paolo and actually get more insight as to what has actually concerned us. I mean, I have found many things that have concerned me actually. The closeness that the lobby has, the closeness that the meat lobby has to politicians, to decision makers who actually have billions of European Unions, 1/3 of the European Union budget which goes to the common agricultural policy, and they have all this direct contact. Is this still the issue? Let me start the conversation here. Is still this the situation in the European Parliament? Do the lobbies have such direct contact?
Yes, unfortunately, with this, the situation is still the same in Europe, because as you saw in the film, the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy that was approved in 24, is going to be valid until 2027. So until 2027, that's the money that's been allocated for the Common Agricultural Policy. At the moment, the new parliament that was elected in at the election in June 24 is now starting to draft the new Common Agricultural Policy, which will start from 2027 and will last for the next 7 years. Obviously, after the film came out, there's been like quite a lot of pressure as well on European politicians to try to change this. But we also know that the meat lobby is very powerful in Brussels. It's one of the biggest lobby in Europe, and they're really powerful. They have like a really strong link and connection to politicians, and you know, they're gonna do whatever they can basically for things not to change, because obviously there's lots of money involved. The whole meat production sector is basically, it's only been able to run this business because of the subsidies that they received from the European Union. If the subsidies would be cut, they would be in serious problems. It would be a serious problem for them. And this is the way how they basically, when they talk to politicians, they say, okay, if you cut the subsidies, you're gonna really hurt this whole sector and industry, and our competitors, which they always mention in the film, which are basically America and China, will take over, and then, you know, we as Europeans, we will be forced to buy even worse meat from China and America. Obviously, this is their excuse for things not to change, but there are so many other ways that things could be changing for the better, especially, you know, this system of meat production with intensive farming is, you know, as you saw in the film, like it's really damaging, you know, for the animal, of course, but it's also damaging for communities, for the environment. So it's really a sector that shouldn't be receiving public money. And that's what we really wanted to show in the film. We wanted to show how actually these 300 billion euros are spent to subsidize a system that, you know, it doesn't bring any benefit to animals, citizens, and the environment.
Thank you, Paolo. Is there anybody who'd like to ask a question? We have Mika here. We're getting you the mic.
How can we help improve or make a difference to like change and help animals and everything, the environment? What can we do in general, in everyday life, for like everyone in a normal life?
I mean, there are two ways. One way is an individual way, a personal way, which is basically, you know, we can all decide every time that we sit at the table what we want to eat. So if we want to, you know, perpetuate, you know, with this and you know, and prop this industry with money, obviously, we have the choice not to do that, and then basically finding like plant-based, having a plant-based diet. And I'm also aware that for some people, for cultural reason, they will find it like real difficult to switch to a plant-based diet straight away. But even by strongly reducing the amount of meat that people consume in Europe, that would be like a massive change. Because like nowadays we live in a society where it's normal for lots of people to consume meat on a daily basis. Some people, they even consume meat like 3 times a day without even realizing. They will have like bacon at breakfast, a chicken sandwich for lunch, and maybe a steak or like fish for dinner. And this has become so part of our way of living because of basically of intensive farming and the availability of like really cheap but also really bad quality meat. So I think that the reason why we did this film is because we wanted to bring awareness to people, and we wanted to make people think about what they're eating, and hopefully people will by seeing the kind of meat that they're eating and all the problem that it's causing, they're going to switch to a plant-based diet. Since the film came out, we received literally hundreds of emails and messages from people that are all around Europe, which basically they wrote to us and said that the film really impacted them, and they changed their diet, and which was great, because also we wanted to make a film that would be able to talk to the masses, to everybody. We didn't want to make a film that would only talk to the animal and vegan community, which of course they're already aware of all these issues and problems. So for us, it was very rewarding then to receive all these messages from omnivores that they wrote to us and said, you actually made us think a lot, this film, and we decided to switch to a plant-based diet. So this is the first thing that we can all do on a personal level. Then there is the more like societal level instead, where we can basically bring put pressure basically on politicians, and through like different way of activism, but also like simply by basically like you can write to your MPs, and you can there's so many other ways you can write to the council, even through for people that have kids, to the school, like to ask schools to provide like plant-based meals in schools. So there are many things that can be done, and the reason why we did this film is because like it was said in the intro, most people in Europe, they just think that they're eating like really good quality food and meat, and then the only these kind of things, this kind of horrible way of production that are only happening in America or in China. But we wanted to show the public that basically the meat that they buy in the supermarket is coming from intensive farming, and it's with the hope that basically it could bring change. Also, I don't know if you are aware, after the film came out, 2 MEPs, Clara Guidera and Pablo De Castro, didn't run again for election in June because basically of public outcry in Spain and Italy. People basically demanded for them not to run again and put pressure on politicians. So, as I said, there are different ways. You can do it on an individual level, but also like putting pressure on politics. And you never know, things might change. When we started this film, we would never think that we would bring down 2 very powerful MEPs, but it did happen. So things can happen if it all start with a small change, and then things will happen later on.
Are there any other questions?
So basically, I understand the point that you say it would be better to change for a plant-based diet, but also you can see that if you plant a whole field of soy, for example, you'll be killing the nature that was there, and also the animals that was under the field. So
yeah, but
if you don't do this, you enter in the whole aspect of the changing the DNA of the plants and all these aspects that we have until now, but in the animals, but in this case with the plants. So basically change half a dozen for 6,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but you know, if you think that most of the cultivated land in the world is for feed for animals, so if we simply would switch basically like to cultivate soya and corn and all the food that is produced to feed animals, that would also allow basically lots of land to be used for other kind of crops, which could be instead for humans. So it's the whole system, like the majority of, for instance, of the rainforest in the Amazon that is being cut down is because is to give space for fields for soya and corn for animal production, not for human consumption. I think it's like almost like 70% of the production of agriculture is just to feed the animals in intensive farms. There are almost like 70 billion animals every year in intensive farms around the world, and you know, they all need to eat and they consume lots of like plant proteins, which then are transformed in a very few animal proteins. So the real issue is because you know, there's so much land that is dedicated for food for animals and not for humans.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Paolo, whilst we're taking the microphones there, I wanted to ask you, Malta has 6 members of parliaments, one of which is the president of the European Parliament. How important, in your opinion, is it that we actually lobby with our own local MEPs? Maybe they might not be on the Agri Committee, but obviously they still have to vote. Coming that in 2027 there is the change in the Common Agricultural Policy. What can we as citizens, as obviously voters for these people who are there, how important is it that we pass this message, and what message should we pass?
Well, I mean, I think it's very important for every citizen to try to get involved in politics as well, because if we really want to have a democracy that is more direct and is more close to the issues of citizens, we also are the one that need to start doing something about it. So definitely, like, contact your MEPs, and you know, you can you can basically like tell them like the things that have been denounced in the film. So why is the European Union subsidizing so much money that is going directly to intensive farm? And obviously, you know, there's this camouflage that they use is the fact that they say that money is not directly for the animals, but it's for the crops. And this goes back to what I was saying before, that the majority of crops are for animal feeds. But it's like maintaining this system in place, and basically demand for change, and demand also for at least for a different direction for the European Union. You know, I would love. I mean, obviously, I'm aware of the fact that, you know, people will carry on eating meat. You know, at least nobody. You know, it's impossible that everybody will stop eating meat. But at least if the European Union would go into a direction of, you know, producing better quality, less but better quality, I think that would be already a big step, instead of going into the direction that is currently going, which is basically trying to emulate and compete with China and America, producing like really cheap, bad quality meat, and actually lowering the standards. Also, like since the film came out, there's been a few there's basically now been interest in the European Union to start using genetic modified technique also on animals. They haven't passed the law yet, but they're seriously talking about it. And you know, so that should be something that also like should be avoided, and because we think you know, it's not right to genetically modify animals just because so that they can grow without horns, or things like this, or like they will also, they're trying to genetically modified animals. So for instance, they don't emit as much CO2, or their hoofs are able to walk on cement all the time without getting infection. And so basically this is like basically transforming modifying animals so then they are more able to cope within intensive farms. And I think this is aberrant. We shouldn't modify the animals. We should treat animals with their rights. At least extensive farming is definitely way better than intensive farming, even if I don't agree with it. But I think that this is the direction that Europe should go. And at least, because they hide these 300 billion euros within the Green Deal, and the Green Deal is sold to the public as a deal that obviously is for the environment, is for biodiversity, and then you'll see that instead the majority of this money is going to a sector that is doing exactly the opposite of what is considered green. So I think, but the public is not aware, and also I'm sure that also lots of MEPs, they're not aware of it, because the way European Parliament works is that a few MEPs, they're specialized in their own sector. So there are people that are in the agri sector, people that are in the energy sector. So when they vote for, for instance, when they voted for the CAP, there are also lots of people that don't even know what they're voting for, basically. And they're just simply voting because their political party says, yes, vote yes for this common agricultural policy. And in fact, for the common agricultural policy, the majority of the vote were coming from both parties, like both the Liberal and the Conservative Party, and only the Green and a few of the left, they abstain or they vote against it. So it's, and the problem as well is that it's a problem that is transversal to many parties. It's not right or left. Because lobbyists, they like to work with every party so that whoever wins, they're able to then, bring about what they want.
So my question is, do we have the same problem with organic farming? And can organic farming be also intensive?
Well, organic farming in theory shouldn't be intensive. But it depends. Like labeling as well is another huge issue. You could also make a documentary about labeling because there's so many. Basically, it's very difficult to trust what you read on the label because there's so many times. They can label something like free-range chicken, which means it's not in a cage, but it's still inside one of those big intensive farms that you saw. In theory, if it says organic, it shouldn't be inside of intensive farms. But again, there's been like many cases, like Julia also did another investigation in Italy a couple of years ago about a company that is all organic. They produce only organic chicken, and the result instead was that the chicken were all inside intensive farms. They were not as bad and as big as the one that you saw, but they were still intensive farms, and it wasn't organic. Basically, that was the problem.
Just to add something here on a local context, I recently found out that in Malta, chickens which are left on fields are illegal because of legislation, local legislation. So at the end of the day, whilst we might read local free-range chickens, but in reality, no chickens are allowed to actually run around freely in the soil, because that is no animal can be allowed. No goats.
Chickens, no goats, no sheep, no
So
animal can be left.
these are labels which we have to really
So
understand.
in reality, we can't have.
Yeah, and also now with the avian flu as well, there's the problem that the industry, the sector is saying we shouldn't leave animals in the open because there's the danger that they will bring avian flu. Obviously, it's just another way to try to scare people because, yes, of course, like an animal that is outside, it can catch avian flu, but it's different when avian flu then reaches intensive farms. What happens that, all, 100,000 chicken that are inside or 1 million chicken that are inside that intensive farms, they have all to be culled because they will all catch avian flu. While if you have a small farm, with a chicken roaming freely, one might catch avian flu, but it doesn't necessarily spread it to all the other ones because they're not all living in a small, closed environment with no ventilation, basically.
Anyone else? Questions?
Hello, good evening. I wanted to ask you, it's very interesting, all the topics that the documentary touched on, the antibiotics and the pollution and everything. Just wanted to mention also the ethical aspect. Could I ask you, what feedback did you get after you made the documentary? How much feedback did you get from ethical groups, and how often were you approached about? Because at the end of the day, like you said, we can, the two ways in which you mentioned we can make a difference. One, we can, like, let's say, bother our politicians and that, but in all truth, isn't what we do daily is what's going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's why I said that the first choice is a personal choice. And then, whenever we sit at the table, we are the president of our table, so we can make the decision on what to eat. So that's the first start. But, until it's just a few people doing it, it's great, but it's still a few people doing it. So there is the need also like to do more. And that's also why me and Julia did this film, because basically we wanted to try to reach as many people as possible. Because unfortunately, like, many people are not concerned about the welfare of animals, or like they're concerned but to a certain extent. So that's why we also talked about lots of other issues, like the antibiotic resistance, because some people are more sensible instead about health. Some people are more sensible about communities, and that's why we also included like things like worker exploitation, or like the destruction of some local communities. Because all of this factor, hopefully, they will make everyone that watches it think and find something within themselves that will make them realize that this is an industry that is really bad and really damaging. First of all, of course, to the animals, but then also like to the climate, to the environment, and also to the people that are living. So this was our hope, that basically to try to reach a wider audience, and so that the film could become something that everybody could find something to relate to and to be disgusted by, and then hopefully that will bring some change in their personal choices.
Hi, so basically my question is regarding, I know that in the US they're exploring the possibility of lab-grown meat, and I know there are companies such as Just Eat who have started such production. Would that be a viable option, possibly here in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, that could be, that would be definitely be one of the direction where the world is going. I mean, personally, on a personal level, I don't really agree with it, because I think that if you don't want to eat meat, you shouldn't like try to find a surrogate of meat, basically lab-grown meat. Basically, I think that you should just switch. You should just make the effort and then switch to a plant-based diet and just eat plant-based. But again, I understand that lots of people won't be able to do that, and so there will be a need to eat meat, and definitely, lab-grown meat. It will probably be a better alternative, at least for sure for the animals, because there won't be any animal suffering, but also a better alternative for the environment, because there won't be, obviously, as I said before, the needs for like so many crops to feed the animals. So as everything, it's got its pros and cons. It's got many pros, but from a personal level, I don't really believe in kind of like man-made food, basically. I think, we should eat more like naturally, because also like there's not much research done about it, so we don't really know what could be the effects, the side effects, if there are any. There might not be any. But as I said, I on a personal level, I think I prefer to eat like natural, basically, whatever comes from earth.
Are you guys continuing with the investigations and the reports which you made? Because you said in the documentary that reports were made on these farms, but what was done? And do you still have any contacts with any MEPs currently, or what's your vision next after this documentary?
Yeah, we're still carrying on with the investigation because thankfully, like because of the success of the film they had in some country in Europe, we managed to build like quite a big community. We have on Italy we have like 140,000 like followers now on Instagram, and we're basically like through donation we're basically carrying on with other investigation. We just literally like yesterday we released a new investigation in Holland, in the Netherlands, because we're launching the film in the Netherlands this week as well, which will be out for a few weeks. And so we launched this new investigation there, which is basically exposed. I don't know if you're aware, in Netherlands there's the Farmers Party, which is like very powerful and very big, and we exposed the link between intensive farming and one of their MPs from the Farmers Party, and basically you can go and watch it online. We just released it yesterday, and there's also a version in English as well, and so we are carrying on with other investigation, and we're going to launch another one in Portugal as well. So yes, we're definitely carrying on with the work, and also through the association Humans, which is a European association. We are trying to bring more awareness in Parliament about these issues of intensive farming and subsidies. And so there was a panel a few weeks ago where also like Julia went to Brussels to participate. So yes, we are carrying on with the same work and bringing awareness. And again, in Italy as well, we're also like setting up a system where basically like normal citizens can basically tell us if they see any problem in any farms in their local area, and they can report basically to us what's going on, and then we will, if we're able to, we will investigate those issues or report them to the police. And also like to conclude, one of the farms, the farm that we saw near Rome, was then investigated by the police, and it closed down. I think the guy has been arrested, the manager. Not arrested, he's not in prison, but there's going to be a trial basically, and the farm closed down because there was also exploitation of illegal workers as well. So yeah, I mean, many things are happening since the film, and we're hoping that we can carry on doing as much as we can also in the future with other projects.
We have one more question.
So technically, animals have five rights, five freedom rights. In Malta, I visited farms personally because I'm studying in a course that makes me go to farms, and I see animal cruelty, such as cows with infected nails, legs, and can't walk. Pigs we cut their teeth. They make us cut their teeth, cut their tails. Obviously, living in their environment. Can we report that, or is this like technically they're in an animal welfare cages and everything's up to date to the animal welfare, but animals are still in pain. Pigs are still like seizuring on the floor, or like with I forgot what they call it, like they have their intestines coming out. So like this happens in Malta and no one does nothing about it. So can we do something in Malta for our animals, for our farm animals?
Yeah, of course. I think like 100% you should report it. Like if you see any irregularities, or if you see like animal suffering, unnecessary animal suffering, definitely you should report it to the authorities. I mean, the problem is that most of the time, like the authorities, they also they're also in contact with the farmers directly. They kind of know what's going on, and most of the time they just close an eye. So it's not that easy. You know, the reason why that farm in near Rome was investigated then seriously from the police and they closed it down, it's only because of the film, basically, and because, you know, it was seen everywhere. You know, in Italy we have over like 3,000 screenings in cinemas of the film. So it was very successful. It was also like broadcast on TV it had like 2.5 million viewers on TV. They were talking about it on newspapers. So basically, at one point, the police had to do something, and they just went there and they closed that farm down. But you know, it's not easy to report irregularities farms because, as I said, there's some kind of complicity between sometimes the police and the farms, or like the politicians and the farmers. So it's not always that easy. But you know, the more that we report and we expose what's going on, the better, because you know, at one point they can't always hide behind it. Basically, at one point, you know, if the truth keeps coming out, people will realize what's going on and things will change.
Maybe you and Julia can come here for next. Make some
Yes, if you invite us,
investigation in Malta.
if you invite us, I would.
There's a lot to see here.
Yes, I've never been to Malta as well, so I'd love to come as well.
We will guide you.
Yeah, and I'm sure that, you know, that's the problem, you know, because like, you know, lots of the time people ask us, you know, did you choose the farms that you show in the film because they were particularly bad, or, you know, things like this. And, you know, the answer is it's not. It's, you know, every single intensive farm, unfortunately, if you go inside, it presents lots of problems because it's the way of farming, it's the way the animals are treated and they're living in like really bad conditions that then brings all those problems. And that's why the animals are getting sick, and that's why they have to be given antibiotics and other medicine on a daily basis. You know, it's basically the system itself that is rotten, and that's why we wanted to make this film, and we wanted to show Europeans that unfortunately also our food production is a rotten system, unfortunately.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you, Paolo, for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for inviting me, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the film. Even though I know that it's not an easy watch, but I hope you enjoyed it, and at least it's gonna make you think and leave the cinema with like some thoughts in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we are going to take our time in Malta and the activists, and also Eden for actually giving this opportunity for yet another screening in another country. And thank you all, and spread the word. Please spread the word. Thank you.